The 2024-25 season has been a disappointment for Carlo Ancelotti and Real Madrid. They're now on the verge of finishing the campaign without winning a single trophy, not in La Liga, not in the Champions League, and not in the Copa del Rey. To make matters worse, they've lost 4 El Clásicos in a single season. Now that Los Blancos have confirmed they'll part ways with the most decorated manager in their history this summer, there's a real sense of sadness and a weary acceptance that this marks the end of an era. But just a year after lifting the Champions League for the 3rd time under Ancelotti's leadership, how did things go so wrong? What happened to Real Madrid this season? Let's rewind to last summer. At the time, Madrid were riding high. They had lost only 2 matches the entire season on their way to winning both La Liga and the Champions League. The league title came with 21 clean sheets in 38 games, 87 goals scored, and a 10-point lead over their rivals, Barcelona. But many of the problems they faced this season can be traced back to that summer. In May, Toni Kroos announced his retirement after Euro 2024 with Germany. The club also knew that Nacho, one of their captains and most versatile defenders, would leave after 23 years, heading to Saudi Arabia to join Al Qadsiya. But what they didn't expect was Joselu's departure. The striker, who had scored 17 goals the previous season, left to join Qatari side Al Gharafa. Fast forward to this season, and the absence of those 3 players has been felt deeply. Kroos's ability to control a game was never properly replaced. Nacho, who could cover both fullback and centre-back roles, would have been vital, especially with the injuries Madrid faced in defence. While not a direct replacement, Joselu's exit was followed by Madrid's marquee signing of Kylian Mbappé on June 3rd. After years of pursuit, they finally landed him on a free transfer from PSG. Along with him came Endrick, the teenage Brazilian forward who had agreed to join in December 2022. But even before Mbappé's arrival, coaches inside Madrid were concerned. At PSG, Mbappé didn't press with the intensity required of a Madrid forward. Some predicted the team might concede 15 more goals than last season with him, hoping his attacking firepower would make up for it. And just as Mbappé arrived in Spain, Madrid suffered another major blow. Leny Yoro, the 18-year-old centre-back from Lille, who was expected to join, signed with Manchester United instead. Madrid had spoken with his agent, Jorge Mendes, who said Yoro was willing to come. But United's offer was more than double what Madrid proposed. And just like that, they lost a player they had scouted for months. Although there were still weeks left in the summer transfer window, and despite Ancelotti's calls to strengthen the defense, the club did nothing. Madrid chose not to spend, but it wasn't just a numbers issue, it was also about balance. Only Antonio Rudiger is naturally left-sided among the centre-backs, and even he prefers playing on the right. At that point, the board said they'd reevaluate the situation in January. But Ancelotti and his staff were skeptical that any real changes would come. After standout performances at the Euros and Copa America, Madrid's players had a short and chaotic preseason. Just 2 weeks after the tournaments ended, the squad flew to the US for a 10-day tour. Then they quickly returned to Europe for the UEFA Super Cup final against Atalanta, which they won 2-0. Only 4 days later, they kicked off their La Liga season with an away game against Mallorca. They were tired. They lacked proper physical preparation, and they had almost no time for tactical training. It showed. In their first 3 La Liga matches, Madrid drew 2 of them. The attack looked disjointed and relied mostly on individual brilliance to score. Inside the training center, several sources expressed concern over the lack of specialized coaches, but it wasn't for lack of trying. Late last summer, Ancelotti tried to hire Andy Mongan, an assistant coach from Stockport County, a team in England's 3rd division. Why Mongan? He had a strong connection with Ancelotti's son, Davide, and was known for his creative work with attackers. Ancelotti believed he could bring something fresh to Madrid's training sessions, but the plan failed. Mongan couldn't get a Spanish work permit, and the whole idea collapsed. Despite a rocky start, Madrid began building momentum in the league, but then came matchday 11, the first El Clásico. They faced Barcelona without captain Dani Carvajal, who had torn his ACL 3 weeks earlier. Barcelona's front 3 ran wild, and Madrid lost 4-0. After that defeat, Ancelotti adjusted. He moved away from the 4-3-3 and the experimental 4-4-2. Instead, he switched to a 4-2-3-1. In that setup, Mbappé played either as a central striker or out wide on the right, When he drifted right, Bellingham moved centrally. When Mbappe occasionally shifted left, Vinicius moved into the middle. Despite concerns, their stats showed they weren't getting in each other's way. The numbers told a different story than the eye test, but the injury crisis kept getting worse. Eder Militão tore his ACL for the second time in 2 seasons. Lucas Vazquez and Rodrigo both picked up injuries in mid-November and were out for a month. By that point, 17 different Real Madrid players had missed time with injuries during the season, some more than once. Only 4 had stayed healthy the entire time: Luka Modric, Asensio, Güler, and Endrick. Back in 2015, one of the reasons Madrid sacked Ancelotti was because of injury problems. This season, the situation was even worse. But this time, club president Florentino Perez didn't question Antonio Pintus, the fitness coach. He believed Pintus was key to Madrid's Champions League success. Still, Pintus's intense training methods sparked debate. Some inside the club felt Madrid would benefit from a separate, independent fitness department, led by someone else. By late November, things were getting tense. Madrid had just lost back-to-back Champions League games to Milan and Liverpool. Militão was out, and there was still no senior centre-back signed to replace him. Ancelotti began to suspect the worst. Spanish media headlines started pushing the idea of trusting academy players. Ancelotti believed these stories were being leaked by people inside the club, and that it meant no new defender was coming in January. In December, Madrid won the Intercontinental Cup in Qatar. They beat Mexican side Puca 3-0, but that victory only covered up deeper issues. Then came January. Manchester City offered right-back Kyle Walker on loan. Madrid didn't even respond. Walker ended up moving to AC Milan. Meanwhile, City, despite having their own struggles, acted fast. They signed Abdulkadir Kusanov and Vito Ri, 2 young centre-backs Madrid had been watching. The deal cost City about €75 million. Back in Madrid, the defense was still in crisis. David Alaba finally returned from his ACL injury after 399 days out. But even then, it took weeks before Ancelotti felt he was ready to start. And just as he got back into the team, Alaba was sidelined again in early February, just days after Rudiger picked up an injury in a 1-0 loss to Espanyol. That left Real Madrid with no senior centre-backs to face Atletico Madrid and Manchester City. Between November and December, Barcelona's dip in form gave Madrid a lifeline in the title race. They won 6 of 8 matches and pulled ahead. By mid-January, Madrid was 7 points clear of Barca, with Atletico still in the mix. But then came the second Clásico of the season. The Spanish Super Cup final, played in Saudi Arabia on January 12th, Madrid actually took an early lead through Mbappe. And after a red card, they had a 1-man advantage for over half an hour. But somehow, it didn't matter. Barcelona destroyed them. The match ended 5-2, and that game seemed to reignite Barca's season. Since the start of the year, Barcelona have been on fire. They haven't lost a single match in domestic competitions in 2025, and at the end of April, they won the Copa del Rey, beating Madrid 3-2 in extra time. Real Madrid, meanwhile, fell apart. They dropped points, complained about referees, and struggled with injuries and a lack of chemistry. In February, they won just 1 of 4 matches, and in early March, they lost again, this time to Real Betis. As Barcelona surged ahead in the league, rumors linking Xabi Alonso to the Madrid job grew louder. By February, Ancelotti already knew the club was talking to Alonso's camp. But even then, both in public and behind closed doors, he insisted he wanted to stay. By March, though, things changed. The lack of new signings, the club's pursuit of Alonso, and the upcoming departure of his son David, a key part of his coaching staff, all weighed heavily on him. David plans to leave Madrid this summer to become a head coach himself. Then came the Champions League quarter-finals against Arsenal. Madrid were thoroughly outplayed over both legs, and at the Bernabéu, they lost 2-1. That result felt like the final straw. Ancelotti has always known that, at a club like Madrid, every match could be your last. But now, it really is over. He's accepted a lucrative, 1-year deal to become the new head coach of Brazil through the end of the 2026 World Cup. Meanwhile, Xabi Alonso is set to take over at Madrid. He was once coached by Ancelotti. Now, he'll succeed him. And, although his return to the Bernabéu feels poetic, it's still an open question. Can any coach, no matter how talented, truly bring together a group of stars willing to set aside their egos for the good of the team? Only time will tell. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.